The Big H Podcast, tune in now. Conversations that'll wow. Laugh and learn, stay a while. Let's explore that Hilton style. From the highs to the lows, every story just explodes. Mike's got questions on the go, diving deep from head to toe. Every week the guests align, sharing moments so divine. Stay with us, the pace is fine. Every episode you'll find. The Big H Podcast, tune in now. Conversations that'll wow. Laugh and learn, stay a while. Let's explore that Hilton style.
Thanks for coming out here on a beautiful spring night. We've got a lot of things to do tonight because this is our annual meeting. So we'll get started right away with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll ask you to all stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks. Have a seat. A couple of announcements. First of all, the annual banquet's coming up next month. It's Monday, May 11th at the Exempt Club. Liz Mistretta in the back, there she's waving, has tickets, so you can buy them now. We're going to be entertained by the Biscuit Brothers. We're going to perform their banjo and guitar musical performance working in local history. Tickets are $35. Doors open at 6 and dinner at 7. Also, just a heads up, we're the board will be considering here in a couple of days, changing our venue from here over to the fire hall at the end of the street on Old Hojack Lane. They've got a wonderful facility there. It's very comfortable. It's quiet, great technology. Keep an eye on the newsletter and the website, and we'll let you know for sure, but that won't be until September. Okay, some business. This is our annual meeting, so we have some business we have to attend to. Two pieces. One is the new bylaws need to be approved, and two, we need to elect the members of the Board of Trustees. So I'll try to make this move along kind of quickly. The bylaws have been published in the newsletter, on the website, on Facebook, so you have had a chance to read them if you're so inclined over the last couple of months. I'm not going to go through them tonight, it'll take too long, but I'll count on you having read them. Oh, by the way, before we start, we're going to vote on some things, so you're eligible to vote if you're a member, which is to say you're current with your dues. So you can find, you're all set. Okay, we have a quorum. Yep. All righty. So right now I need a motion to approve the bylaws as they've been published. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the bylaws.
All right, that's John Corcoran. Thank you, John. And a second, please. Can I have a second? Second from Dave Crum. Okay. All righty. Any comments, questions about the bylaws you want to raise right now? Okay, all those in favor of approving the bylaws as published, signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? None. Okay, carries unanimously. That takes care of that. Now the elections. We have to elect 4 officers and 4 trustees. We'll start out with the president. The board has nominated Jerry Pickett, who's sitting in the back of the room, to be our new president for a term of 2 years. Thank you, Jerry. Are there any additional nominations from the floor for president? Hearing none, I'll close the nomination. Because there's only one nominee, we can congratulate Jerry on his Congratulations, Jerry. Second is vice president. We currently have no nominee for vice president. Are there any nominations from the floor for vice president?
I nominate Dave Crum for vice president.
Dave Crum. We have a nomination of Dave Crum for vice president. Dave, do you accept that nomination?
Accept.
Okay, are there any other nominations for vice president? Seeing none, I'll close the nominations for vice president. And again, we have one, so we can congratulate Dave on becoming our new vice president. Congratulations, Dave. Next up, treasurer. Again, the board has not nominated a treasurer candidate, so we are looking for a nomination from the floor for our treasurer. Do I have a nomination?
I would like to nominate Dave Almeida for treasurer.
Dave Almeida for treasurer. Where are you, Dave? There you are. And do you accept that nomination, David?
I accept it.
Okay, very good. No other nominations? And we congratulate Dave as being our new vice president. Okay. I'm sorry, treasurer, my apologies. Thank you, straight. Secretary. Okay, again, currently no nominees for secretary. Are there any nominations for secretary from the floor? Anybody that wants to nominate someone to be secretary? Any nominations? Okay, there being none, then we're going to leave this position open and continue to our search for a secretary. If anybody is interested in succeeding Nan, who will be retiring, please contact a member of the board. Okay, finally we have trustees. We're nominating 3 trustees for a term of 3 years. Those are Amanda Dudley, Liz Mistretta, and Frank Hubble. All right, the board has nominated them. Are there any other nominations from the floor for trustee? Okay, there being none, we've got 3 positions, 3 nominees. We can congratulate all 3 on becoming our new trustees. And last but not least, we have a nominee for a 1-year term as trustee. One of these trustee positions is for 1 year. That's Lynn Pricing. The board has nominated her. Are there any other nominations for this last trustee position from the floor? Hearing none, we close the nominations and we congratulate Lynn on becoming our 4th new trustee. Okay, thank you. You did great. That concludes the elections. And we're ready to move on with the program. We have Deb and Tim Smith here with us tonight, and they're going to talk to, they're retired school teachers. They're going to talk to us about, they're prolific authors, and their most recent book that they're going to talk about is Royally Regaling Greater Rochester, Taking Stock of the Rock. So without further, we're going to turn it over to Tim and Deb.
Thank you.
Let's give them a hand.
Thank you for being here tonight. We are Tim and Deb Smith, and we're here to speak tonight about our 7th book, the recently published Royally Regaling Greater Rochester, Taking Stock of the Rock. In this book, we've collected stories and histories from the Greater Rochester area, guided by our goal to always be on the lookout for the humor and intrigue that is embedded within the tales we have to tell.
We have a rather unique backstory that we thought we'd share with you before talking about our latest project. When we were in 8th grade, Deb was a Lima Indian and I was a Honeywell Falls Hornet. The merger between those 2 school districts occurred in between 8th and 9th grade for us. So we were the first class to spend all 4 years as Honeywell Falls Lima Cougars. We met on the first day of high school, dated for all 4 years, then went on to different colleges and ended up not seeing each other again for literally 40 years until my mom passed away.
Well, I heard about it through the grapevine in Virginia Beach where I was teaching. I sent him a sympathy card, he wrote back. One thing led to another, and after I retired from teaching that year, he came down, picked me up, and brought me back home. And now we're married and living happily ever after in beautiful downtown Mendon. But one unique aspect to our courtship was that every day when I would go to the faculty mailroom, there would be an envelope from Tim waiting for me. The contents would be a letter that I had written to him 40 years ago, he saved every one of them.
Took me a long time to play those cards. So why don't we get this Greater Rochester show started with the man who was actually the very first white settler in what would become modern-day Rochester. Now you might be thinking, what are the odds that the very first desperado to pitch a tent on the banks of the Genesee is going to have a salacious and scintillating story to tell? Well, if you're thinking that, don't be so negative. Turns out our first settler has a fascinating story to tell.
His name was Indian Allen, and the Indian was a nickname. He was actually a white guy who was also the first settler of Scottsville before heading into Rochester. In addition to his first settler hobby, he was a practicing polygamist, and he practiced hard. Here is his marital numerology. Upon reaching manhood, the number of wives he had in his stable could be charted as 0, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2.
And that numerology encompasses the comings and goings of 5 different wives altogether. Furthermore, believe it or not, his 5 wives included representation from 3 different races. Of Indian Allen's wives, 3 were white, 1 was black, and 1 was a Native American Indian. If it weren't for the fact that the dating pool of Asian women in Scottsville in 1800 was pretty shallow, I'm thinking he probably would have checked that box too.
And just when you think you can't raise the bar of bazaar any higher, Allen is 58 years old when he marries his 5th wife. And if you're wondering how much gas this old geezer could have left in the tank at that point, they go on to have 5 kids.
If you're wondering what else they did for entertainment in the early 1800s, turns out there were indeed some options. In 1828, when Rochester boasted a total population of 10,000, 6,000 people came out to High Falls to see the very first American daredevil to achieve fame on a national level. That daredevil would be Sam Patch, who had achieved national fame by jumping into bodies of water from ever-increasing heights. Nicknamed the Jersey Jumper, Patch was on his way home from performances at Niagara Falls when he decided to swing through Rochester to tackle the High Falls.
So, on November 6, 1828, Sam Patch jumped 100 feet from a platform at the top of High Falls into the Genesee River. But the opening act for that jump was that he threw his bear cub off the same platform before him. The Rochester branch of PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, was clearly not on the job yet. When the hat was passed, he raised so much money that he decided to stay in Rochester for an additional week and schedule an encore performance which would take place on Friday, November 13, 1828.
What could possibly go wrong, right? On Friday the 13th? And really, Rochester could not somebody have handed this dude a calendar. So for his follow-up act, Sam Patch built a 25-foot high platform, increasing the height of the jump to 125 feet, and published advertisements scheduling his jump at 2 p.m. and the bear's jump at 3. As he left the platform, onlookers could immediately tell that something had gone wrong because Sam's technique was to keep his body totally rigid and enter the water feet first like a torpedo.
This time, his body flailed awkwardly. He crashed into the water, and his body did not resurface and was not found until the following spring. There were multiple theories floated as to what might have gone wrong. Personally, based upon the published schedule of Sam jumping at 2 and the bear at 3, we think the bear might have pushed him.
When Midtown Plaza was torn down in 2010, it was a not-so-exultant ending to what had begun as a national storyline, when in 1962, Midtown had opened amongst fanfare that had branded it as the first indoor urban shopping mall in the United States. That actually made for an interesting historical segue from something that happened in Rochester over 100 years before that.
In 1829, the Reynolds Arcade was built, and with multiple additions. By the mid-1800s, we ended up with a 56-foot-long, glass-covered skylight atrium that literally bisected an entire city block, from one entrance on Main Street and one on Exchange. Check out this picture, and you really get a feeling of how ahead of its time this arcade was. As you can see, it was 3 stories high with a balcony that wrapped around the 2nd floor, overlooking the ground floor. It was a lavish complex. Hold on. That's where it's. It was a lavish complex of offices, shops, services, and restaurants.
Check out how cool this place was. It gives you pause to think, there's your first indoor shopping mall. George Eastman got his first job here. Bausch & Lomb started their optical store there. Samuel Morse and Hiram Sibley founded the Western Union Telegraph Company there.
And I'm going to go back to show you this. Whoop, wrong one. You can see right there in the left part, it says Western Union had a place there.
And
Okay. Also, Thomas Edison and Daniel Webster delivered 2nd floor balcony speeches here. For over a century, it was Rochester's center of commerce, some calling it a city within the city. In 1933, it was replaced with a larger 11-story office building which bears the same name.
All right, next, we've got a foxy scam story for you. Beginning in 1849, a trio of sisters, Leah, Kate, and Maggie Fox, initiate the most famous and long-lasting scam in Rochester history. For decades, they succeed in convincing many locals that they are mediums, able to provide the opportunity to communicate with the dead through a series of rapping or knocking noises, which answer their questions on a once for yes, twice for no basis. Skeptics are challenged to visit any of their sections and detect any fraud, but no one is ever able to reveal how they're doing it.
So how did they actually pull it off? Might have been a secret best taken to the grave. But for whatever reason, they admit in 1888 that the noises they are able to generate in otherwise stone-silent rooms come from an ability they have mastered to simultaneously crack their toe knuckles on that once for yes, twice for no basis.
While the Fox sisters aren't buried at Mount Hope Cemetery, they probably should have been. And while we're on the subject, here's one weird way to look at it. Fun fact regarding Mount Hope. Think about this. There are almost 150,000 more people dead and buried in that cemetery than there are alive and living in the city of Rochester. Keep hoping that that zombie resurrection doesn't come to fruition, because if it does, we're going to be seriously outnumbered.
As the 20th century kicked off, there was an array of characters prowling the streets of Rochester, and we're excited to share with you a pair with parallel monikers. Here's the tales of peddler Frog-Leg George and tavern owner / museum curator Rattlesnake Pete. This peculiar pair certainly do manage to fulfill the flair of their flashy nicknames.
They lived during about the same time period, with Frog-Leg George hopping around from 1860 to 1936, and Rattlesnake Pete slithering around from 1858 to 1932. So what did these two dudes do to earn their animalistic nicknames? Well, Frog-Leg George, he scoured the swamps of rural Monroe County, capturing frogs and turtles, which he sold to restaurants that served frog legs and turtle soup, both of which were considered to be delicacies during that era. Who knew?
Well, in reversal of concept where Frog-Leg George brought his critters to the customers, it was the customers who came to visit Rattlesnake Pete. He ran a combination of tavern and museum on Mill Street in the city. While enjoying their food and beverage, Pete's clientele was also treated to live viewing experiences of animals and memorabilia.
So, as his nickname implied, Pete was a master of reptiles, and he had terrariums of poisonous snakes, copperheads and rattlesnakes, which people could see, and Pete would often take them out of their cages and handle them to ooh and ah his customers. So that was legit, as were some of the aberrations that he had. He had a two-headed stuffed calf. You know, it's a freak of nature, but it happens, and that was real.
And upon close examination, the authenticity of some of Pete's memorabilia became a little more suspect. He claimed to have a pipe that had been smoked by Abraham Lincoln's assassin, John Wilkes Booth, the battle flag from Custer's last stand, and the weight used for Rochester's last hanging. Documentation of the chain of ownership of those latter items is a bit sketchy.
If you ask the people that came in contact with him how they would assess his character, you'd get a wide variety of responses. To some, he came off as a charming eccentric, while others viewed him as a sophisticated con artist.
How many of you have heard references to Driving Park Avenue come up on the TV or radio? Okay. How many of you know how it got its name? Yep, it was a horse racing track that operated in the Driving Park neighborhood from 1874 to 1902. It also hosted other events, such as the circus and Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, as well as the first automobile race in Rochester, which took place in 1900.
Well, it started out as being pretty successful and popular, but when sports betting became taboo in the 1890s, things went downhill. During its last summer of existence in 1902, it was actually taken over by thousands of gypsies, which, as you might suspect, did not make for a comfortable marital mesh with the city. It all ended ugly, just like in the old Cher song, Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves. And if you're wondering what happened to them, the best thing about gypsies is that, well, they're gypsies. They don't stay in one place very long, and by the end of the year, they were all gone.
Here's a story that combines a very personal touch with a huge piece of Rochester history. When I reunited with Tim and came back home in 2013, he shared with me his collection of memorabilia on the Rochester Royals, the NBA basketball team that played here from 1945 through 1957, and won the NBA championship in 1951. They played at the old Edgerton Park Sports Arena, which was torn down in 1957. And Tim made a casual comment that sometime he would like to go in the city and just stand at the spot where history was made all those years ago.
You know, so when I said that, it was just like a casual throwaway comment at the time, and I didn't think about it. It's a year later. It's the next summer. We get in the car one day, and Deb tells me we're going on a surprise field trip. She's going to drive me to a place I've never been before, to meet some people I've never met before. I literally had no idea what she's up to until she turns into a parking area where I see a sign that reads Edgerton Community Center.
Through a long series of phone calls and conversations, I have been able to connect with two gentlemen from the Edgerton Community Center who were going to meet us at the park and make Tim's dream come true. They themselves didn't even know for sure where exactly the arena had been, but they knew nothing had gone up since that building came down. And they had a folder full of notes and maps. For the record, Edgerton Park is spread over 42 acres, and it's not like a location would be blatantly obvious.
So, armed with our notes and maps, we take to the fields. We know that there's one remaining vestige from the Edgerton Park Sports Arena, and it's still there, and it's a 3-foot wide, 8-foot high concrete column that stood sentinel guarding one side of the entrance to the old parking lot. Once we located that, everything else gradually fell into place, and we were able to walk it off, and then, at least in our minds, we rebuild the old arena, center the court within the overall rectangle, walk to the spot where the winning shot was taken in 1951, and know that we are within a few feet, give or take, of the spot where decades ago, NBA history was recorded right here in our hometown.
The expanded timeline of Edgerton Parks takes on an even greater historical significance. It was in 1849 when the Western House of Refuge would open there and gradually grow to become the largest reform school in the state and one of the largest in the country. In 1902, the city purchased 1,500 acres in rural Rush and moved the reform school to the hamlet of Industry where it still operates today. That left the city with a huge 42-acre multi-building complex which was gradually transformed into Edgerton Park.
For decades during the first half of the 1900s, Edgerton Park became the social and cultural hub of the city. In addition to the sports arena, which hosted all the city's major indoor events, Edgerton was also home to the Rochester Library, the Rochester Museum and Science Center, an indoor zoo, an NFL football team, the annual 4th of July celebration, and the Monroe County Fair. 400,000 people flooded the park for Rochester's centennial celebration in 1934.
It was a glamorous era, during which if something important or exciting were happening in Rochester, it was probably happening at Edgerton Park. But along with the good, inevitably comes the bad. The timing basically coincides with World War II, but in reality, the demise of Edgerton Park was a result of a combination of many factors. In 1941, the city pulled out the tracks and the streetcars, and the automobile took over those streets.
In 1947, the county fair moved to Henrietta. In 1956, the War Memorial replaced the Edgerton Park Sports Arena as the city's state-of-the-art sports venue. Also in 1956, the subway closed, and in 1957, the Royals left. Edgerton Park, it had a glorious run while it lasted, but it ended with a whimper rather than a bang. In a span of only about 15 years, the park had gone from being the centerpiece of life in the city to being peripheral at best. It was a swift fall from grace, leaving the Edgerton era as a gilded memory.
We're going to track this thread through the county fair's move to Henrietta in 1947, where we will bring a brush with the bizarre. When the fair thrived for decades, the societal changes of the late 60s and early 70s began to bring tensions between the town of Henrietta and the fair. As some of the classically rural county fair events, such as rodeos and animal exhibits, began to give way to more sensationalistic attractions such as the Ape Girl, the Lobster Man, and the Snake Woman.
In letters to the editor, Henrietta residents began to use the word tawdry to describe their dissatisfaction with some fair attractions, and it all came to a head, in of all places, at the Tahiti burlesque tent. What could go wrong in that tent, right? Well, how do we word this for a family audience? I guess we'll just say that in a playful burst of exuberance, one of the girls exposed a Tahitian treat that crossed a town line. The cops were brought in, arrests were made, and Henrietta and the county fair would never be the same again.
If you're a Rochesterian looking to have a great sports trivia question tucked away in your back pocket, tell everyone else to look away right now, and we'll hand you one under the table. Timing is important here because you don't want Rochester to be the topic of conversation at the time when you pose this question. You want the topic totally elsewhere. Then you throw out the trivia question. What are the only two cities to have teams that were charter members in the original NFL and NBA? One is Chicago. What do you think the other one is?
So allowing for a pause to run through the most obvious possibilities, like New York, Philly, Boston, pick your point and chime in with the actual answer, which would be Rochester. The Rochester Jeffersons were charter members of the NFL in 1921, and the Rochester Royals were charter members of the NBA in 1949.
Well, let me use that sports story to segue into significant African-American achievements that actually took place in Rochester. Many recognize the milestone year of 1947 when Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier, becoming Major League Baseball's first black player. An historical injustice we'd like to just rectify is that far too little attention is paid to the fact that Rochester Royals, the NBA franchise alluded to earlier, had a black player, William Dolly King, 1 year earlier in 1946, but you don't ever hear about that one.
Then, Black's Facts number 2. When the NBA officially formed in 1949, the very first occasion of an African American stepping onto the court in an NBA game also occurred in Rochester. And next, at this point, let's transition our sports theme onto the game of golf. Rochester has always been a big golf town, and when our research drove us down that fairway, here's the quirkiest story that sprung up.
The first Rochester area golfer to achieve lifetime membership status on the PGA Tour was Terry Deal. When we sent him our working draft of our book at one point, he got so into it that he expanded his interest in the sports component to delve into other chapters of our book. In addition to responding to our golf component, we received further feedback from Terry confirming the fact that he had delved into our crime chapter.
So we get an email from Terry. He's clearly left his golf bag in the clubhouse at this point. The email reads, Tim and Deb, in reading the crime component, don't you think it would be appropriate to include serial killer Ken Bianchi, the Hillside Strangler? He was in my sophomore homeroom in Aquinas, and their mothers were on the same bowling team.
How's that for some insider info?
Just can't stop thinking about how much we would love to have been a fly on the wall in the Brighton Bowl when Mrs. Deal and Mrs. Bianchi had that conversation about, so what do you think your boy will do when he grows up?
Well, here's a story we shared in the book that took us totally by surprise when we started our research. Did you know that there's a pretty good chance that Jack the Ripper is buried in Rochester? The dude's name was Francis Tumblety. He was born and bred here. He's buried at Holy Sepulchre Cemetery. He was in London for all the murders, and the head of the British investigative team went to his grave saying that he believes Tumblety was the most likely suspect.
In terms of crime, Rochester certainly has some tales to tell. Of course, there are the still unsolved alphabet or double initial murders that took place back in the early 70s. That was when 3 young girls were killed within a 2-year period, and each girl had double initials, and each girl was found in a town which started with a letter of the girl's initials. To explain exactly what we mean by this, Michelle Maenza was found in Macedon, Carmen Colon found in Churchville, Wanda Walkowitz found in Webster. We have some theories on this which we share in the book.
Here's another murder dilemma for you. Put yourself in this position of this guy. You're on trial for a murder that happened in South Lima, which you did not commit. In a quirky series of events, circumstantial evidence is lining up which seems to suggest your guilt. You actually do have the alibi to prove your innocence, but find yourself reluctant to play that card. Why would that be? Because your alibi is that you can prove that you were robbing the train depot in Honey Falls at the time the murder was committed. It makes the best out of the frying pan and into the fire story ever.
Continuing on our criminal trail, Rochester was also home to 2 of the largest armored car heists in history, both in the 1990s. We lead into this as if we were starting a joke. Stop us if you've heard this one. A cop, a terrorist, and a priest walk into a bar, and taking it from there, those are actually the 3 main players in the story, which makes for another good one, also in the book.
We did a review of amusement parks in the Greater Rochester area, covering 10 of them. Obviously, there's not nearly that many now, so this component is dotted with rise and fall stories. The most glorious tale told here is that of the Ontario Beach Park, which operated from 1884 to 1919. During its height, it became known as the Coney Island of the West, with a record crowd of 42,000 attending on opening day in 1907. The only remaining vestige of the park is the carousel, which is still operating today more than 100 years after the park closed.
We loved working with the team at Seabreeze to document their story. The most tantalizing tale here would have to be the concept of how a 17-room house was built into and below the structure of the Jackrabbit roller coaster. The family who operated that ride actually lived in the house from 1923 to 1972, and the house remained intact but unoccupied for another decade after that before it was finally torn down during the winter of 1982-83.
Another local project that had us roaring was our collaboration with the Seneca Park Zoo. We got to spend a day with their most experienced docent, Maureen Whalen. And while we share the full details in our book, we thought we'd share with you our favorite of her escaped animal stories. On one occasion, when a Girl Scout troop was enjoying a sleepover in the Discovery Center, the zoo's 16-foot long Burmese python escaped and curled up right on the floor beside the sleeping girls. Well, our humorous take on that was to say that whatever merit badge was received by the girl who woke up to deal with a 16-foot snake in her bed, it just wasn't good enough.
The city of Rochester has some pretty impressive inventions on its resume as well, including some everybody knows about, like the camera, Kodak, copier, Xerox. There's also some you probably don't know about, like the voting machine and the eyelash curler, which fall into the fairly benign category. But counter that with the realization that Western New York was also home to the invention of the electric chair and the machine gun. We figured out how to kill both one person and a whole lot of people in the shortest time possible. And ironically, on that note, both of those inventors were dentists.
And we didn't just invent things, we also created some fine food and drink. There's Weigel's White Hots topped with French's white yellow mustard. From the outlying regions, there's Jell-O from Leroy, topped with Cool Whip from Avon. In terms of beverages, nobody pushed the envelope harder than Jolt Cola, who created the first energy drink here in 1985. leading with an advertising pitch boasting the fact that it had all the sugar and twice the caffeine.
So while that was kind of a jolting groundbreaker, pun intended, some of the following pitches they came up with were even edgier and more entertaining. Jolt enticed energy enthusiasts and music lovers alike with its claim that it had so much caffeine you can actually see sounds.
And for those soda drinkers who might have been intimidated by their parents, there was also the advertising slogan they used that admonished, your mom, you say your mom won't like this? Well, your mom's not here.
The Hilton Apple Festival, for you guys, has been a fall staple here since 1981. The original event was held at the parking lot of the Marple Family's Furniture Store on Canning Street as a promotional event for the business. We talked with Doug this week, Doug Marple. He told us the response was so overwhelming that we realized we needed a larger location. So the event was moved to the current location at the Hilton Community Center here on Henry Street. And buoyed by its success, the Apple Festival decided it was ready to make news on a worldwide basis.
So in 1982, your town set out to establish the record for the world's largest apple pie. We'll share the recipe next, but let's please try to keep this a little secret, just between you and us. The preposterously plentiful pie was made from 2,002 apples, 2,100 pounds of sugar, and 352 pounds of flour.
Here's a picture from that 1982 Hilton Apple Fest, which indicates the size as being 18 feet in diameter and 18 inches deep. And isn't the giant knife a nice little touch there? The man holding that knife is Pat Marlowe, who along with Doug Marple and his father Homer were the co-founders of the festival. Doug also felt it would be appropriate to extend kudos to Carol Gersland, who has managed that festival since day one. But unfortunately, before the huge pie pan had been run through the car wash for cleaning, the Hilton record had been usurped by a batch of brash Brits who purchased or who purloined the pie record before the ink had dried on Hilton's highlight.
Well, rather than engage in what could have become a never-ending cycle of one-upsmanship, the Apple Fest folks decided to take a reverse strategy in 1983 competition. That year, they opted to create the world's smallest apple pie, baked in a bottle cap. According to the latest information available, that record still stands. And Doug told us, I think we got more publicity about the smallest than we did the biggest.
In the book, we cover Rochester sports to a never-before-achieved level. To skim off just a few highlights, our city is certainly the king of contest longevity. Next are some stories where the Rochester players could have used some of that Joe Cola we were just talking about. Rochester teams have actually played in the longest Major League NBA basketball game ever, the Royals, the longest professional minor league basketball game ever, the Zeniths, the longest Major League Soccer game ever, the Lancers, and the longest professional baseball game ever, the Red Wings. I'm almost out of breath just talking about it.
And even if you're really not a huge sports fan, many of the stories will still resonate. Rochesterian Ken Kaiser umpired in Major League Baseball for 23 years and was known for his irreverent sense of humor, which he showcases in his autobiography, Planet of the Umps. Here's our favorite story from that book. Kaiser wrote, "One game I was at third base at Yankee Stadium and I heard an unusual kind of thumping sound behind me. I turned around and saw a knife sticking in the ground. Well, under the circumstances, I did the only thing possible. Pulled it out of the ground, showed it to Yankees third baseman Greg Nettles and said, 'Hey Greg, look what somebody threw at you.'"
Okay, here's another audience participation option for you. In terms of audience capacity, it was Rochester's largest venue ever. 20,000 people for sports, 30,000 people for concerts. It was named after the city's greatest war hero ever, and most people in Rochester don't even remember his name. Let's begin to rectify that local injustice tonight. Please let us know the name. Anybody got it? Yeah, exactly. Don Hollader.
Here's the long story short on Don Hollader. He graduated from Aquinas in 1952, then the U.S. Military Academy at West Point in 1956. He made the cover of Sports Illustrated as an Army football player, and then after being drafted by the New York Jets, he chose a career in the Army over a career in the NFL.
In 1967, he volunteered for active duty in the Vietnam War. At the Battle of Ong Thon, he was flying a helicopter when he noticed U.S. troops in danger on the ground below. Rather than fly back to base as he had been directed, he chose to land his chopper and lead a rescue mission. He lost his life in the effort that saved several others.
That local largest stadium ever was the old Aquinas Stadium, which was built on Mount Read Boulevard in 1949. It could seat over 20,000 for sporting events and 30,000 for concerts when people could fill the field space. Some glorious moments occurred at that stadium, which was renamed Holliday Memorial Stadium after his death. But unfortunately, after the stadium came down in 1985, a lot of local people seemed to forget.
If you look really close, you might be able to see me at the Grateful Dead concert. I'm about 10 rows back in that 30,000 thing. So as we approach the end of our presentation, we hope we'll be leaving you with some humor and some history, but here's the one thing we want you to absolutely leave with tonight. Remember Don Holler. The opportunity comes up, share his name with people.
So we're going to close with a piece of local history that we were personally involved in.
We shared at the opening of this presentation that the merger between the Lima and Honeywell Falls school districts occurred in between 8th and 9th grade for us.
Well, the vote didn't occur until June 12th, so the beginning of school was just months away, and there was a lot to do and not much time to do it.
One thing on the list of to-dos was that we needed a new nickname and new team colors.
At Lima, our colors were purple and gold, and we were the Indians.
And in Honeywell Falls, we wore orange and black, and we were the Hornets.
So during the first week of school, flyers were passed out in homeroom one morning, and we were informed that we would be voting on a new school color and mascot.
We were given two choices, and to assure that there was no sense of favoritism, the four colors of the old schools were realigned in new combinations.
Our two choices were that we could be the black and gold Cougars or the purple and orange Sunrisers.
Which of course begged the question, what the hell is a Sunriser?
But the joke that ran through the student body at the time was the notion that if they were going to force us to combine the old colors, they should also figure out a way to combine the old nicknames.
And with Lima being the Indians and Honeywell Falls being the Hornets, the consensus student choice that we should have become the HFL Horny Indians. It wouldn't have scored high on the scale of political correctness, but think about the merchandise we could have sold.
Well, that is our presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We do, I just let you know, we do have these books up here for sale. We just did a book signing at Barnes & Noble last weekend, and we have another presentation at the Rotary in Mendon. So we buy these by the hundreds, and they're on Amazon, they're at Barnes & Noble for $25 plus shipping and taxes. Since we buy them in bulk, we sell them only for $20 a piece. So if you're interested, we have a wide variety of our books.
Tell them about the women's and the animal thing.
Okay, if I could just tell you real quickly, the animal one is called Crowning the Animal Kingdom. And it was supposed to be just two authors, my husband and I. And then he came up with the idea, well, why don't we, get it out there for the states. If there was a zoo in each state that wants to contribute something about their animals, well, we do. We have one from every state. And then Ukraine contacts us, and he says, I've heard about your book. I'd really like to tell you what I'm doing here during the war. He's in here. We have 107 countries. This is why this book took so long. Wrote to us and wanted to tell us about their funny names, about their sanctuaries, about Ukraine's was about their breeding process while the bombs are going overhead. And the other one, you said the women's? This one we can't hold on to because a lot of people give them to their moms. It's Historical and Hysterical Women in History. Lucille Ball, of course, is in there from Jamestown. We have a woman named Josephine Baker. I don't know if any of you ever heard of her. She was a spy, but a dancer. We delve so deep. The first Barbie is in there, and she was, we just really look at them if you'd like. We'll autograph and personalize them to you, but they're here. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, before we wind up here, we have a 50-50 drawing, so we're wondering, Deb, if you can do the honors and pick out the winner.
It's gonna be a good one.
It'll be a good one. Now, read off the last 3 digits if you would.
Right, sure, without my glasses. 209.
209. Do we have a
Say
winner?
209.
Oh, there it is. John Adams, you got it. Thank you. All right, well, you're welcome to join us. We'll come on up front if you have any other questions.
Yeah,
And
we'll be here for a while.
cookies and punch up at the table. Thanks again.
The Big H Podcast, tune in now. Conversations that'll wow. Laugh and learn, stay a while. Let's explore that Hilton style. From the highs to the lows, every story just explodes. Mike's got questions on the go, diving deep from head to toe. Every week the guests align, sharing moments so divine. Stay with us, the pace is fine. Every episode you'll find